Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your favorite place to be, Story by Vera. So today we are still telling the story of Miriam. We found out her story in part 1, what happened to her, what led into her silence. And so in this part now, we'll find out what Mr. Oludare was actually doing, him and his cohorts. Will find out all that in this part and what later happened to them. So you would like to stick around and hear the story to the finish. It doesn't end here, but let's start this part. But for my returning subscribers, I say thank you for always sticking around. And if you're new on this channel, do not forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell because we drop our juicy story every day of the week. So you wouldn't want to miss a story because our story is very much inspiring and you will love to hear. It's suspense-filled story. So you wouldn't want to miss any. So do well to subscribe and turn on your notification bell to always get notified because a story keep coming and it's always interesting. So let's get the story started. See you guys.
Buried in her silence. Part 2. Darkness, thick, suffocating. Adobe awoke in a cold, damp room. Her head throbbed, her wrists burned from the tight ropes binding them. The air was heavy with mildew, and everything far more sinister. Fear, she blinked rapidly. No windows, a single board flickered above her. She could barely make out the shape of a door and a camera mounted in the corner. She was being watched, and then she remembered. The garden, the bombs, Mariam's warning, the gunshot, Chief Oludare's chilling smile. Panic surged through her chest. She wasn't just in danger, she was evidence. Mariam hadn't planned for this, not this way. She had spent years hiding, calculating, sketching out revenge with her silence like a sharpened blade. But Adobe, she was different. She had dared to care, to listen, to believe, and now she was paying the price. Mariam stood outside the basement door, frozen. She could hear Adobe's soft cry, to scream, to fight back, but fear, it closed deep in her skin, and then a memory. Her mother's last word, mouthed through the smoke. You are not weak. You are not afraid. Speak, Mariam, for me. Her hands trembled. Her breath became in short bursts. And for the first time in decades, Mariam whispered to herself, not again. Inside the mansion's private chapel, Chief Oludare knelt in prayer. Fake prayer. His hands were clasped. His lips moved in silent rhythm. But his eyes were cold, calculating. Father Malaki sat behind the confessional screen. Another player in the game. Another witness silenced by money and blackmail. I need her gone, Oludare said flatly. Tonight. Burial pit. The priest asked. No, burn her, like the others. A purse. And the girl? Father Malaki asked. Mariam. Oludare scoffed. She's broken. A shell. Let her rot. But the walls of the chapel had ears, and Mariam was listening. What Oludare didn't know was that Mariam had learned how to use the mansion's old surveillance system. For 10 years she had watched and recorded. From her attic, she had rewired one of the monitors to save snippets of footage onto a hidden drive. Hidden behind her mother's painting, she had evidence. The gatherings, the torture rooms, the hidden victims, Father Malaki, Commissioner Bamidele, even the night her mother died. All of it. She just didn't know what to do with it, but now she did. Adobe had given her that. Adobe shivered in the basement. The door cracked open. Footsteps. She expected Oludare or worse, his silent henchman, but it was Mariam. She stood in the doorway, holding something in her hand. A knife. No. A key? Mariam. Adobe croaked. Silence. Mariam knelt and untied her robes. Then she did something Adobe never thought she would see. She opened her mouth and spoke. Just one word. Run. Adobe stared at her, stunned. You spoke? Mariam nodded, her lips trembling. Her voice was raw, shaky, like a broken violin string. I'm done. I'm done being silent. They had minutes, maybe less. Adobe grabbed her hidden flash drive from under her sock. She had managed to slip it into her shoe before being dragged away. Mariam led her through a second tunnel, one she had never told anyone about, one her mother had used once to run away before being forced back. The passage led to the stables, far at the edge of the estate. Beyond that was forest. If they made it to the road, they would contact someone, maybe the one ally Adobe had been hiding, her editor, she, who was waiting for a signal that never came. But Oludare was not a man who liked to be outwitted. He had already noticed the unlocked basement door, and his dogs had caught their scent. Chief Oludare didn't panic. He never did. Instead, he smiled, sent them into the forest. He ordered his guards, bring the girl alive, kill the journalist. The horns were unleashed. The forest lit up with flashlights and gunshots. Mariam and Adobe ran, breathless, bleeding from thorns, tumbling in mud. They could hear them coming. And then, out of the darkness, a figure emerged. A man with a camera and a gun. It was she. Adobe collapsed into his arms. You came, she gasped. Of course I did, he said. Now let's bring these monsters down. Back at a safe house on the outskirts of the town, she and Adobe plugged in the drive. It was all there. The videos, the names, the rituals, the evidence of a decade-long network of abuse, murder and cover-ups. But there was a problem. Uploading it would take time, and Oludare had already issued a bounty. They were being hunted, and Mariam, she was missing. In the chaos of the forest, she had been separated. Adobe insisted on going back. She tried to stop her. She is the key, Adobe said. She is not just a victim, she is the proof. Mariam hadn't been lost. She had come back on purpose, back to the room with the red door, the room where it had all started, where her mother was beaten, where her voice was taken, where the gatherings happened. She stood there now, wearing a mask, one her father had once worn during his rituals, and she filmed herself. She spoke. She told everything, names, dates, and crimes. She posted it live, straight to Adobe's burner account, and then she waited, because she knew Oludare would come, and she was done running. Chief Oludare entered the red room with a gun. He expected fears, tears, begging, but Mariam stood tall. She looked him in the eyes. I remember everything she said. His hand trembled slightly. You don't know what you're doing, Mariam. You are sick, broken. She shook her head. No, I was silent. You made me silent. You raised the gun. You will ruin everything. But before he could pull the trigger, a siren wailed outside. Dozens of red and blue lights filled the estate. She had uploaded the footage. Adobe had brought the police. Oludare froze. For once, he was the one who couldn't speak. The news exploded like wildfire. Prominent politicians arrested in human trafficking, murder ring, journalist and survivor break decade of silence. Justice for Mariam, Oludare's mother at last. Father Malaki disappeared. Several high-ranking officials were taken into custody, and Mariam, she didn't return to the Arctic. She moved in with Adobe. They barely spoke those first few days. But one evening over tea, Mariam said, Thank you for hearing my silence. Adobe smiled. I always did.